So, because I made this cane a long time ago, it'll be quite stiff, so I'm going to have to get it warmed up and reconditioned a little bit. Maybe reduce it slightly. These little bits of perspex. So I'm just pressing on the sides here, so that I can start sort of reactivating this cane. Because if I just slice it and start trying to make something, it'll be really brittle. So I'm just testing that this slice is flexible, and it seems like it is. So the thing with working with white is I've got to be super careful to keep everything clean. So I'm going to slice this up, trying to get even slices, even thicknesses throughout. So, that slice is maybe a millimeter thick, and that's a fairly good one. Let me see. So it's fairly even, top to bottom. So when I make these sheep things, I tend to make loads of them all facing the same direction, and then I'll make one of them facing the opposite direction. I don't know if anybody other than me notices, but I think it's important that the world has sheep that face the opposite direction sometimes. So the question is, should I make mirrored pairs or mostly one way and then some facing the other way? Okay, I'm just going to go get my wire. So I've got a little length of wire, it's about 1 inch long. So this is a pair of earrings I've made. So that little piece of wire is going to be plenty long. I don't know that I will put this many accent beads on here. So I could possibly get away with a shorter piece of wire, but obviously it's better to have. So he's going to be square, not diamond shape. I suppose that many beads does actually look okay. What I'm doing here is just putting a little loop in the wire so that this will have, when I embed that in the clay, there's something to hook on, because if it's just a straight piece of wire in the clay, then it's very easy for it to pull out. Whereas if there's a loop, then there's actually something for the clay to grab on. So it makes it more secure. So you can just use a straight piece of wire, but then you've got to come back afterwards, take them out, put glue, and stick them back in. So Firstly, that's a hassle, and secondly, I never trust glue. So it doesn't really matter that these are crooked, because once I've baked the component, then I can straighten that and adjust that. But it just does make it easier to work with if the wires are not curling all over the place in opposite directions. Okay, so I've got all these bits of scrap clay, which I'm going to just condition up. And then I'm going to put, I don't know if you can, well, I'll show you what I'm going to do. This is very thin white, so I usually have scrap clay, and then I'll do a thin layer of white, and then I do my decorative layer on top. So this is scrap that I've used for blue beads previously. So the reason why I do, particularly with this cane, because it's got white in it, I'll have the scrap, it doesn't matter what the color is, and then I put a layer of white, and then I do my cane slice, just because I have had issues where I've had like a pale yellow or a white, and then if I've got this is quite a mild, mid gray. If I've got a darker color, it's like often this scrap ends up a dark khaki green or something like that, then it actually sort of puts a shadow in the color in the front piece of clay, which is not what I want. So there was a little while back, there was a bit of a shortage on the white polymer, so I've been a bit economical with my use of white. Okay, so this is not super clean white because it is just the backing. Now you see, I didn't usually, when I work with white, I make sure I clean the pasta machine, but obviously I'm not too worried for this, so this one's thinner. I'm putting it on the thicker grey backing clay. So I'll probably just trim these bits off because then I can use those again. So the scrap clay is kind of like the circle of life. It just keeps going. So I'll end up with scrap from making these beads, and then I'll keep that for the next batch. So I'm just leaving a little bit of space between each slice, just so that I can get my blade in there. So this technique is quite easy with straight edge shaped things. So triangles and squares and rectangles. It's not so easy for round shapes. I've got a slightly different technique that I use for that. Okie dokie. So that's good, they all fit. So I'm just roughly cutting these out. So it doesn't matter if there's a little bit of excess on the edges here, because I'm going to come in with my sharp blade and actually bevel these. I'm just separating the little pieces. So what I'm going to do now is put a bevel on there. So I've got the blade just underneath. Let's see if I can show you. blade is just underneath the top of the face of the cane, and then I'm angling it down, so I'm trying to get a 45-degree cut. So this at this point it's just muscle memory to get the right angle. So I do that on all 4 sides. So this is what's going to become scrap for another set of beads. Okay. I prefer cutting from the front because then I can make sure I've got it starting in a good place from the front of the cane. So I'm just squishing that wire. It needs to be central there. So it's not a, doesn't matter if this is in the middle, off to the side, or at an angle. When you see now that little curve, because I've squished it in slightly, it's got polymer squished in between the curve there. So now we get this other. Actually, you know what I'm going to do is line that up first. So I can feel this cane is still quite cool, so I'm just going a bit slowly here. So pinching the corners together first. So because this cane is quite old, there you can see the cane is cracked. So I will be able to roll those cracks back together. Let me see if I can save this one because he's cracking a lot more than I anticipated. So I'm just using my knitting needle and I'm rolling from either side. So I'm rolling, lifting, rolling. So I think what I'm going to have to do is warm up these little slices before I try and do the shaping. I don't know if I'll be able to rescue this bead. Might be too far gone. The other thing would be just to make the cracks a feature. There's a Japanese technique where they actually repair broken crockery with gold. Let me see. Kintsugi, called gold joinery, golden repair. So it's the broken pottery and then they've put these little gold veins in it, so it's quite beautiful. But I'm just wondering if I go with the cracks on this and put some gold mica in there, because then they look like little cracked tiles maybe. So the thing with mistakes is either try not to make them, or if you do make them, just own them and make the mistake a feature. That's my approach. I will make sure that these edges are joining up properly, because that's an actual structural issue, especially on the side around the wire. Oh, sorry, focus is out. Yeah, I did an autofocus super close. There we go. Back on autofocus now. So he's looking a bit bad, to be honest. So I think there's no hiding the cracks in this instance. Often I can. I like to mix the mica. So this is some I've made before. I mix it with water, and then I've got a little pipette. And then what that does is it will dribble down into the dents, the cracks, and then leave the surface clear. If I mix this mica up with water, I'm hoping it will sink into the little cracks and then leave the sheepy pattern. So I might need to do one side at a time. So I might, let me see if I can make a little blob of this, because I don't want to rest it on a surface. Okay, so hopefully that'll hold him till it's dried a bit. The other thing that might work here is acrylic paint. Because I think the reason why with this little component the mica makes a nice shiny effect is because I dry them flat, so then the little mica particles, I imagine them like little teeny tiny bits of glitter. Sort of they settle with the shiny side like little teeny tiny discs, the shiny sides pointing up, whereas that one which I dried upside down, I think the little particles are not facing up and being shiny. But I could bake these with the big cracks and then maybe go back and squish in some new unbaked clay and then put mica on that. So this is the one I dried more flat. So he's got more mica glued on the surface. But still, even there, the crackle is not it's not really adding an interesting feature, it's just looking like a mess. Anyway, I ended up just squishing these. You see the gold is on the side of the crack rather than bottom of the crack, so you couldn't actually see it. Anyhow, so those will become the core of new beads. So what I'm going to do, which might have been better to do before I'd cut these out, is I'm going to see if I can warm them up a little bit. Okay, this is a piece of laminating sheet. It's an offcut from something that I've cut out, so there's no it's just the laminating sheet. So if I hold that on there and give that a little rub, so this will add a little bit of distortion. So let's see if that's easier to work with. So make sure you're holding onto the blunt end of the blade when you push down. So it would have been easier to do that sort of burnishing on the whole sheet before I'd sort of individually cut out these little squares. But I wasn't expecting them to crack quite that much. So it is a bit sad when old canes crack like that. Because I've got quite a collection of canes, and then I start to worry, well, can I actually use any of them? Yeah, this one's cracking as well. So the other thing I can do is abandon trying to make these curved. Just bake them flat. So then I'd end up with something more like that. So a flat thing, and then edged. So I've squished that into the back so it's not sticking out very much. That means I won't need a very thick bit of clay to make a backing there. So these guys, I did them single-sided, and I put black on the back, and I stamped a little texture in there. So these have been baked. So what I'm going to do today is just put a little black edging on there just to finish off those sides. So I've conditioned this clay, I've rolled it out super thin. So I'm just going to cut strips, and I don't need to be super accurate with these. So it's as thin as I can make it on my pasta machine. So it's maybe about 1 millimeter. So I'm just cutting more than enough to go over the edging there. So you can't see with the black. So what I'm going to do, I'm just cutting a little split here, because that's going to go around the wire. Actually, I nearly forgot. What I need is a little bit of liquid polymer clay. It's really gloopy, so I'm just getting some at the top of the bottle here, and then I can just scoop that up. So Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll say goodbye